Um, so yeah, hey everyone, my name is Cynthia Ruff. I'm the CEO and co-founder of #PayMe. If you haven't joined for some of our webinars before, we love talking with other amazing creatives in the space who work with influencers and work with brands so that can bring you all like the best education to help you grow your creator biz. We are a membership platform, creator economy startup that helps you price your work and find brand contacts. We really want to empower you guys to be your own agent and be able to solidify and use these tools to help you grow your business in a more meaningful way, right? So always want to make sure that you're getting paid fairly for work, which is what our calculator helps you do. And then find brand contacts that you want to work with. So very honored to be joined by Anna of the Creative Exchange, and I will let her introduce herself, and then we'll get started with our session.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna, and I'm the founder of the Creative Exchange. So we are a social media agency, mainly working with CPG brands. So a lot in the food, beverage, skincare, wellness, beauty spaces. We had a production studio. I started this company 8 years ago. We had a full production studio. And as of the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic, 90% of all of our work is created by people like you who are UGC creators. So I am hiring people all the time, going through a billion applications all the time. So hopefully I have some interesting things to share to help you get more jobs.
Yeah, and definitely so excited to hear your perspective. And it's nice because most of the time I'm in the hot seat with all these questions. Hey, Anna is going to be in the hot seat and ask her a bunch of questions that you all submitted. For those who just joined, we're gonna leave some time at the end to ask any burning questions you may have. We're really gonna try to make this as informative and useful for you all as possible. So without further ado, we're just gonna go ahead and jump in. The biggest question that a lot of people ask is like, what is the best way to reach out to brands, right? Should we be going through DM or email, carrier pigeon? What's your perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, there's nothing wrong with a DM, but I think the percentage of people that will actually see it or pass that along is pretty small. So that can be one step that you take, and I don't think it's going to hurt anyone. But I would always say, like, getting on a website, seeing if there's a link for, a type form or something specific to fill out, or most brands now have like an influencer or a PR email for you to email specifically. So honestly, there's no harm in trying all of those different ways, because just like me, I get a ton of applications every single day. So sometimes people will fill out our form and email me, and they do stand out. I do not like when people follow up 20 times asking if I'm going to hire them for anything or if I saw it, because I'm typically adding you to a database waiting to, potentially work with you if I like your portfolio, but we can talk about that a little bit later. So definitely any direct outreach or forms or email that you can fill out, I would say would be the top way, but nothing wrong with a DM.
Yeah, I think that kind of brought up two extra questions for me that is on top of that. How many follow-ups, if we don't hear from a brand, is too many follow-ups? Especially on that initial outreach, like what's your perspective? I mean, 20 obviously is very aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and this is definitely a personal take, but when we do call outs for UGC, I look at it in a few different ways, and I'm sure a brand does the same. So if you reach out to me, maybe, and this is actual a real situation, so I would love for anyone here to apply. We're working with a skincare brand that I'm actively looking for UGC creators, and we'll be looking for new people every single month. So maybe that's the way you get in contact with me, is for that. But if I see you and like you, if you're fit for the skincare brand, I'll put you on that list. If you're not, I still have a list that I'm adding people to all the time. But because I constantly get emails and applications to look at, I'm sure the brands do as well. So I don't email people back. Like, it's like applying to a job. You put an application in, you hope and wait to hear back. But if I liked you, I do put you on my list, and I am waiting to use you. But I honestly can't waste my time letting you know that, hey, I liked you, I added you, whatever. I will say today, someone emailed me, and I liked, because, and we'll get into this later, but like, a lot of people's portfolios can look very similar. So I'm looking for things that stand out. A girl emailed me today. I really liked her vibe, but she had no videos talking to the camera. But I'm like, oh, she would be perfect if I could see an example. She doesn't have any examples of that. I emailed her, and I was like, hey, well, if you do put an example together, I'd love to pitch you to this brand. So I'm hoping she kind of, sends a sample so I can pitch her to the brand and get her that job. But if I really like you and just need to see something I can't find, I will reach out. But otherwise, I really don't have any contact with you until I'm ready to work with you.
Gotcha. Yeah. So in your perspective, like what is the best way for a creator to get their foot in the door with a brand? And especially like a big brand. So, what are the kinds of things that they should be doing leading up to that outreach?
Yeah, so I would say my steps are going ahead and posting content of that brand as if you were to work with them. So that's kind of the age-old tale of fake it till you make it, do things as if you were getting paid to do it. If you genuinely love this brand and want to work with them, maybe you already own their pieces, like you do feel comfortable creating content for them that feels genuine. So go ahead and be posting and tagging them on that, because if we're looking for people to work with, the people that we've seen and their content stands out, and especially if it performs well, you're the first people I'm going to, versus asking for these calls of, hey, apply to work with this brand. Or even like, hey, you created this video already. We'd like you to just redo it slightly and then we'll pay you for it. So I would say that's a good primer to get on people's radar, and then do kind of the reach out, and then honestly continue to post amazing content about the brand until, you can figure something out or make a connection. I don't think it hurts to connect with people on LinkedIn, because I love LinkedIn, but I will say that the community manager on the account could be different than the influencer person, but then maybe the decision maker is at an agency and not in-house. So there could be a lot of people you kind of need to get through. And that's why I think it's important to do the outreach and try to get attention in different ways.
Yeah. And aren't brands, especially bigger brands, they're using these social listening tools anyways. So like anyone who is actively like posting content about the brand, it gets kind of funneled into this like back end Google Drive repository where then they can go look at how this is performing, what the comments that are being received about it, because brands are always doing market research and trying to figure out how to make the product better for the end customer. And your conversation starter in these organic posts that you're talking about with brands could be, something that drives like new conversation for an improvement on the product itself.
Yeah. And something I'll add to that is like, I obviously love getting a portfolio, seeing a diverse thing there versus scrolling through your TikTok. But what I do notice is there's a lot of UGC creators that don't post anything on an active account. And I think that's some way of missing out, because again, I have to randomly find your portfolio, or you have to have emailed me. But if you're also, even if you're not an influencer and your video gets 200 views, but if I think it's good for the brand or the brand sees it, they're going to be talking about it. Sometimes it's crazy, like how much your name could come up in conversations at a company. Like I pitch people all the time, and then I reach out like, hey, I came across you organically on TikTok, and then I told my team about it, and then the CEO is excited. Then we reached out, and it's like, we've been talking about you for 4 weeks and you had no idea because we just saw something. Interesting. This is a side example, but like I shopped at this, at Lunia, which is a kind of higher end,
Silk.
Yeah, silk brand. And I spent so much money there that came up in there. I spent like $2,000 one day, and half of it was for a photo shoot. So it wasn't just for me. But I got brought up to the CEO in their weekly checklist. They saw my email. They looked to see where I worked. They knew everything about me. And I went in the store the next week and they're like, oh, we were talking about you. So if you just put yourself out there, or do some type of interesting moves, like you can easily get talked about at these companies, but you can't just rely on things being within your portfolio. You need to kind of put yourself out there, even if it doesn't perform. The people in marketing know when something's quality or not, or feels genuine or not, and will want to work with you.
Yeah, no, that's so great. I mean, it's such a reiteration of like being a fan of a brand is a great way to get your foot in the door. Being, someone who consistently produces content that speaks to the audience that the brand is trying to cater to as well is so monumentally important. And I think that really leads into like, what is it that you look for when choosing influencers? Like, what do you see in headline, like subject lines that come through if someone's directly emailing you, or in a portfolio that you really like? How do you like that structure? Because you are so busy, and what stands out when someone sends you something?
Yeah, so we get it through 2 different ways. I have forms that, like, if people came across my form somehow, I get type form submissions every week. And then I do get people who directly email me. It doesn't bother me which way they do it, because I'm not sure how they came across us. So obviously if they email me, like, I want to know it's UGC creator, because that's just more straight and to the point. So I'm immediately going to open it because I am actively hiring for that. But the first thing I'll do is look at their portfolio or their account. If they don't have anything that directly stands out about them from, just their type of content or their style, I sometimes dismiss it. But the first thing I look for is talking to the camera, because a lot of the B-roll stuff with your hand and the product, anyone on my team can create that. Anyone in a company can create that, but we're looking for personalities. And although you may not be an influencer, we're looking for people that can talk to the camera or have something to say or feel comfortable doing that. So as long as you make it clear you're UGC creator, here's my portfolio. If anything comes up, let me know. And that's, I love people straight and to the point like that. But that is the type of content I'm looking for. And if you don't have that and you honestly don't have anything that really differentiates you, you feel somewhat average, I put you to the side, because there's just so many people doing the same things. And the other thing about this too, and this might come up in another question, but with your portfolio, I get too many Canva ones and the videos don't load. And I'm like, I'm not waiting 5 minutes to hope your video loads. So that's a big thing. It's just like when we go shopping online, if somebody's website's not working, it's like, oh, it's not working. Bye. I go to find something else. So I think your portfolio is really important to make sure. I think Beacons works really well. I've seen a lot of good Beacons AI portfolios, but making sure that your portfolio and video actually loads is really important, because I have dismissed so many people that I don't even know if they were good or not, because I don't have time to wait around to see if it loads.
So you said talking to the camera is really important. What about someone who has like a really energetic voice? Do you like stick around to listen to that in like some sort of those B-roll-y type of campaigns? Because I'm sure, while you want people talking to the camera and there to be like charisma, is there other ways that people can stand out without that direct faced input?
Yeah, 100%. I'm totally happy with voiceover. Because again, if your voice is included versus it not, anyone on my team can hold a product, can shift it around, can do all that stuff, but it needs to be something about like, you look really cool, or there's people their homes are so beautiful, so colorful. And I'm like, you don't even have to talk. We want something in your home because it's unique. So you can have those other types of things, but 9 times out of 10, it's a person with probably an average home or whatever. And I'm looking for you to look different, or I guess more of the influencer route, like you have a very specific profession or something that you're talking about that I want to include. And voiceover is completely fine. But again, 9 times out of 10, hey, I just got this product and it's really cool, and here's the benefits. Like, it's so scripted. I'm just like, anybody on my team can do that. I just need some type of interesting
Angle
act about it. And I think what's kind of come up of TikTok is everybody's like, hey, anyone can be a UGC creator. And I truly believe that, but you can't follow these scripts of what may have been wanted 2 years ago. Now I'm looking for, well, what's your interesting perspective on this? Because with marketing, we all know that like, if we run ads, yes, we do want some more directly to sell, but so much of this UGC now is being used organically, and people don't want to be sold to all the time. So I'm honestly looking for you to incorporate the product in an interesting way. Or ones that I really love are, and they're usually influencers that I come across, but they'll just be talking about something while using the product, and it's distracting to not look. You have to look at what product they're using, and they'll be talking about anything. But I love that, because I'm like, hey, the product caught my eye, but you're saying something that's interesting to me. So I honestly am okay if it what you're saying doesn't match the product, as long as you're getting people's eyes and checking out what, you're using.
Yeah, I think that kind of is a great way to also ask, or Asha asked a great question that kind of touches on that too. Like, how much work do you do to research the candidate online versus only looking at what they submitted? So like, do you just look like last 9 squares on their feed, or like how deep of a dive do you go?
Yeah. So when people fill out our forms, I ask for everything. And obviously some people only give me a TikTok. Some people give me a TikTok and Instagram and a UGC portfolio. I usually start with TikTok. And then if they only send a portfolio, obviously only look at that. But I'm waiting until I see something that really stands out. If you send me TikTok and Instagram, I'm only checking one, because I'm going to assume you have most likely similar content on both channels. but I'm looking at your portfolio or account until I see something that stands out that I'm like, I like that. And then I put you in my database or put you on a pitch deck for a brand. I'm just kind of waiting to see the right thing. And if I think you look interesting, but I'm not quite seeing anything yet, like the girl I mentioned I emailed, I'll scroll a little bit longer. But you know, if I just look at thumbnails, I can pretty much get the gist of, you know, what you're doing if it's not all differentiated.
Yeah, I think, and just you were saying that about the when you told the girl like, oh, I found you through XYZ. I think that's a really good point for us as creators to ask other brands when they reach cold outreach to us is like, oh, how did you find me? What was interesting? Did someone refer you? Like, that's a good way to help like line the pipeline for future opportunities too. Cause like if that worked, like how can I replicate that for more deals in the future?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so, you know, this whole world is so very trendy and trend driven. And so what trends are brands and agencies driven by when looking for creators? Are there even trends, or is it like a trend on top of like a very evergreen style piece of content?
Yeah, that's a great question. My favorite person to come across is they're interesting looking, like they have just something that stands out about them. They have content that is trending, so I know that they know how to edit or can adapt to a trend, but also just have that evergreen content. So if I see all three of those, I am dying to work with you. Like, you are my number one star. But for example, the skincare brand I'm currently looking for people for, that brand knows exactly what they want out of their content and they have priorities. So it's not as focused on like, hey, I don't care if you know how to do trends or how to edit, like they know what they want. I can look at your portfolio to see if you can provide that. But we do hire people to kind of be the face of TikToks for our brand. So right now we have a shopping app called Eureka, and we just hired 2 content creators. And they both have somewhat evergreen content they'll be creating, but as my team comes up with trends, we send them like, oh, the Wes Anderson trend would be really cool if one of you could make that happen, and then they'll do it. So that was a different type of hire because I want to work with them consistently. I want them to be personalities my audience can fall in love with, and I wanted to make sure they could not only create evergreen content, but trending content as well.
And so do you, when you outreach to them, do you have all these expectations put into an email, or is that like just your first pass review? You see that it happens. Do they ever ask about like, you know, what are the expectations for this content?
Yeah, it really depends. So in my most basic situation, we will email, hey, we have this brand. We'll usually link the brand. We're looking for people to create some TikTok videos and potentially some photos. Could you just give me general pricing? Because if I'm working closely with a brand, obviously there's people we'd like to work with, but we're a little bit more open to the content styles and things like that. But it comes down to price, because and we'll probably get into pricing later, but like I'm in an interesting situation where I value creators and want to pay them, but I'm also stuck with a budget. And when a creator comes to me and asks about budget, I'm like, I know that I have, let's say $10,000, and the brand is giving me, hey, you need to minimum work with 5 people, maximum 20. So my budget can range a lot. And that's where I get picky about like, well, who do I value? Like, do you stand out a lot more, or are you now trying to charge me a lot more? We can get to pricing later, but it's just a whole situation. So sometimes I'll be basic in my email, tell them about the brand, what we're looking for, and hey, can you give me an initial pass at pricing? And then for example, the skincare brand, they know exactly what they want. We're only looking for 1 video. We want to work with 6 people a month. So in those emails, I'm saying, hey, here's the brand. Here's actually the brief template. We'd fill it in to match more specific to you, but like, here's generally what we're looking for. Can you give me pricing for 1 organic video, and then what the add-on would be for if you were to post it, and the add-on for 1 year paid usage. So I'm being very specific when the brand knows what they want up front, because to be honest, we don't have time to waste. Like in the marketing world, the brand is late coming to us, and then we're reaching out. And again, we'll probably talk about this later too, but your response time is really important, because there's people that didn't respond to an email for 2 weeks, and I'm like, well, the opportunity's gone. And then the people that respond to me immediately, like, I don't expect people to respond within a couple hours, but the ones that do, I love them, because you know, I've worked with people that respond a few days later, and then they'll wait a week and then another one. And I'm like, I can't have stuff like this drag out like that. that doesn't work for the timeline I'm scoped under the brand to do, and then that doesn't meet the brand deadline to make sure you have enough time to shoot content. So
Yeah.
going back to the point,
Let's
there
talk about that actually right
emails.
now. I mean, this is such a great conversation of like, you know, what is what is typical negotiation timelines for brands? And then too much time, like back and forth. So, you know, and what is the implication for you, especially as like it goes to like budget and creative talent budget?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, I do usually ask up front, hey, you know, what is an initial pricing? I'm happy if you give me a range, but there's some people where, again, because I value you, if I know that like I'm looking for around $200 a video, I could go up to 500, but you quote me 1,000. I'm going to kind of stop the conversation because I'm like, I would never want you to cut that in half. Like that just seems like a lot. So, and it is a game because, you know, sometimes I'm sure you've had a brand that says yes really quickly and you're like, oh, maybe I could have charged more. But as long as you're comfortable with yourself and the money you're getting for it, like that's with anyone in every job all the time, anywhere. Like,
yeah,
we're all in this weird situation of trying to figure out money, but it does come down to, you know, if you're cheap, I might work with you just because I can squeeze you in because maybe I do have $200 left and you're willing to do it. But then there's other times where, again, I usually have a set budget. And then okay, we can go back to the $10,000 example. I have $10,000 to spend. I have to get at least this 10 videos, and that can be done with 2 people or it can be done with 10 people. And if I think you stand out a lot and your, you know, portfolio is amazing, I'm going to push to work with you. But if it doesn't, I'm not as pressured. Like, yes, I reached out to you because you seem like a good fit, but like, I'm going to pass you by if there's somebody that's more interesting or a better fit. So again, the more interesting content you already have out there is going to help me push harder for you to get you that money. I will say another example though that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but I probably rubbed her the wrong way as well, is I did an initial pass. There was this girl that I really liked her content. I said, hey, we have this brand. Can you give me an initial pass at content? And I think she did say about $2,000. And in my mind, that didn't really fit, you know, for her. So I was like, okay, thank you. We'll consider it. She followed up later and she was like, hey, like, any thoughts? And I said, oh, you're out of budget. She was like, well, why did you just stop? Why didn't you negotiate with me? I'm willing to do that. But I'm going back to my morals of, well, I know I would never pay you more than $750, and that's more than 50%. I'm not going to devalue you because I just don't want to do that to anyone. I understand she wanted that negotiation and that her rate was up for negotiation, but like, don't overpitch yourself or underpitch yourself. You have to feel comfortable with what you're charging and just own that, because you could definitely lose out on things if you don't.
Yeah. Do you feel that sometimes, especially from like a UGC perspective, because there is no like obligation to post, like sometimes the quotes are just all over the place. Like, what is your perspective on pricing? I think that's #1 question for all. And, you know, we're still building our UGC database, so we don't really have like a good answer for UGC creators just yet on what to price for these things. So what is it that, how can a creator expectation set when they get reached out for UGC?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I'm also used to dealing with all types of pricing and things like that. Now there has recently been people where I came across them on TikTok. They have 2,000 followers, and then I email them and I get a $7,000 rate. And I just assume that they're an influencer on a different platform I don't know about. That just happened to me because I was like, oh, sorry, like my budget's nowhere near over $1,000, so we'll have to pass on this. I really apologize. I thought you were just a UGC creator. But I'm assuming, I didn't say all that to them, but I'm assuming they're an influencer. So there's been a few times I've been humbled of like, oh no, they're actually famous somewhere else. But a good example is for the 2 people I hired for the shopping app, they both quoted me very similarly. They both are doing 10 videos a month with 1 revision round and 1 year of paid usage. And one person is charging me $1,750 per month, and the other person is charging me $2,000. So that worked out really well. And, you know, I don't want to feel bad for one of the people, but like, I probably would have paid her $2,000 a month, but you know, I have to take what I can get, because I'm also trying to be a person that's here getting the brand the best deal, but I'm also kind of on your side. So I think in my mind, when I'm talking to people, I assume that, hey, if I give you $3,000 a month, I can probably get a lot more out of you there. I think we all have some type of threshold that like, oh, that's a lot of money, I'll do a lot more for that. But when if it's one-off videos, I would say I typically see anywhere from 200. I would never quote anyone under 200 unless you're doing kind of like a package, like I mentioned, of a lot and you're hitting your threshold of money. But I would never pitch for an individual video under 200. And I'm not typically okay to work with anybody charging 1,000 per video if you're not providing me anything more than just the video. If you're not an influencer, you're not going to post anything like that. That's pretty much the range I'm dealing with. And I will want to pay you more if you stand out and have a more interesting personality than someone else. So I'm willing to range on that budget as well.
Yeah. So interesting that, I mean, you can't really measure charisma in terms of pricing, but that seems to be the high, like, it doesn't matter how many followers you have, but it's like how engaging and how captivating you are. One day in the future, there'll be an AI tool that can measure that. We're just
that'd be amazing.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you know, from a creator's perspective, how do they communicate effectively and like share their worth with the brand, right? Like they come back and they're like, I want $1,000. You're like, I've got 700. You know, if they wanted to push for that upsell, what is it that they can share with you that helps you believe that they're worthy of that increased rate?
I never ask this of people, but if you do have like, this brand ran your video in an ad and it did really well, or they posted it and it did really well, like I would love to see that, oh, you are capable of creating ads that convert, because I know that at the end of the day, I'm paying you for a video that I contributed half of the idea, you're contributing your personality and shot and creativity. But at the end of the day, like I'm looking for content we think is going to perform well for whatever reason. So if there's those numbers or examples you can provide that like you did something that worked really well for another brand, I love that.
Have you ever had a creator come back to you and say, hey, remember when we worked on that Eureka shopping thing? Could you give me the stats from all of the, you know, paid ad boosting content that we ran together? Have you ever had anyone ask that?
You know what? Not recently. I'm sure I did maybe a few years ago, as people were like really focused on a media kit versus just like visual examples. So yeah, not recently, but I'd be happy to provide them that information.
So, okay. So like if you were a creator and you wanted to get those stats, like follow up with you and be like, would love to know the performance of it. And that would not be a weird ask.
Yeah, no, because, you know, we go back to creators and say, hey, you posted this. Can you give me the insight analytics to it on your channel? I do the same thing. So
great. I just want to make sure everyone knows, like, it's okay. You can go back and ask and like get those performance metrics. I think that's something that we fall short on a lot of time, is like, yes, we did offer all these things to the brand and they ran it for ads, but we didn't get the final number on how that performed. And that's really useful for getting repeat work.
And just, I'll throw one other thing in there. A tool, if you don't know about it, is Facebook Ad Library. I think it's literally ads.facebook.com or something. But if you search Facebook Ad Library, you can see what active ads any brand is running. So if you have worked with brands and just curious if something you made is active, you can go there and see it.
Yeah, I'm going to go stalk all my past.
Yeah.
And like look at the ones that I ran, because like there was a time where I had my own digital agency and I would run ads before like whitelisting was a thing. And see if it performed better than the brands when they ran it themselves. Yes, it's Facebook Ad Library. And we did have a couple other questions in the chat, but I think this is a really good time to talk about, like, you know, you're very much staffing on UGC basis, and you know, you have like an ethical practice to pay creators, but like, how would a creator navigate that like gifted opportunity if you've ever done one of those, like a product seeding campaign into a paid brand deal? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't want to say I'm a good human, but again, I've been a UGC creator. I work with brands. I have an agency. I try to be ethical, and you're not going to deal with, everybody's not going to be like me, unfortunately. So I I push back when my clients say, hey, we want to do a gifting campaign. I'm like, we're not really a PR company. We're not sending this to celebrities. Like, if I do gifting, I tell my brands, don't expect anything from this. I'm like, if they love it and they post about it, that's great. But like, I can't guarantee, I'm not going to make someone sign a contract with me to say they're going to post for something for free. That's just not who I am. But so we were recently working with a popcorn company that I'm dealing with the brand of, I don't know if I believe in influencer marketing and UGC and all this stuff. So she's all about, hey, I want to send them the product first, see if they do something that does well, and then I'll pay them. So I told her, hey, I'm not making any promises people will post, but I will find people that will take free popcorn. And some of those people have impressed her, and I think we did end up working with them, but like, I couldn't guarantee that we would pick anybody from that. I have to, there's so many brands and people that still just don't even understand social at all. So half of my job is arguing and trying to educate people on what social media is all about, how it works, why we need these budgets, who we're paying. So again, I'm just this intermediary between people like you and the brands, and trying to make everyone happy. But if it is a brand you love and would enjoy getting free product and it's not going to feel like a burden or just extra stuff on your plate, definitely go for it. But if like that already doesn't align with you, don't do it. Like, you know, because nothing's guaranteed, but if you're really excited about it, of course, you know, take that.
Do you think that popcorn company, had you had some sort of stellar performer, like, is that something that you as an agent negotiator would be like, we should put some dollars behind it to make it a real sponsored post? And so like, there's that internal advocacy from like the agent's perspective. And then like, could a creator advocate to you as well? If they saw like this popped off in a really exponential way as well?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I'm rooting for you. I want it to happen. You know, maybe I didn't see you post about it and you send it to me like, oh, did you see how well this worked? It was so, thanks for sending the popcorn. Like just doing that. I'm fine with those types of follow-ups, that reminder, because then that's something I can also show, hey, this person was really interested in working with you. Because for the popcorn brand specifically, they already had a low budget for everything. They were wary on even working with people. And on top of that, they just didn't trust anyone. They're like, well, who wouldn't say yes to money for making a video and getting free product? They just don't get it. And I'm like, well, people have to think about their personal brand and they don't want to oversaturate it with all this stuff. Like, and it's my job to also weed out the people who are just in it for money. Like, we all have a job and we all want money from this, of course, but like, if you're posting about 10 popcorn brands every week, all week, unless you're just a popcorn reviewer, like, no, they're too saturated. Let's not work with them. Yeah. So again, I'm trying to advocate for everyone on both sides.
Is there a specific like stat? Would you rather see like qualitative or quantitative from those kinds of campaigns? Like, what is it that I could provide that was like, oh, this was a huge success in my eyes? What do you think?
That's a great question. I mean, the one thing I hate about organic social is unless we gave you a coupon code or something, I don't know who ended up seeing your video and onto our site. So I guess I do deal with like, oh, did the video, if it was TikTok, did the video perform well? Like got a lot of views. Generally getting comments or people sharing that, that's my two top. I'm like, oh, people are having a whole conversation about this. Or if they're sharing it with other people, that's like definitely one of my number ones that I like to see, because again, there's not really a way for me to track that you got us sales or you push people to our website. If it's like Pinterest or other channels, I might have different numbers, but people sharing your content because they enjoyed it or saved it or commenting is really big. But I think TikTok number one for us is brand awareness, and it's going to be those views.
Yeah. And I think from a creator's perspective, you can use a platform like Bitly and create like your own, like get an account so you can actually access the dashboard. Don't just like take the link builder on the front page, and you can actually track like how many people clicked. At least you get that top of funnel view. So then you can, you know, here's, you know, 20 people clicked from IG, at least now I know that stat. Like, I don't know the full funnel view because of course, you know, in this perspective, the brand has not set you up for success in this matter, but at least you have that statistic to pass on to the brand if you want to negotiate for it. We do have a whole gifted to paid masterclass that we did with the blog societies on our YouTube channel, and which I will repost to everyone who's on this channel as well. Well, we have 5 minutes before I want to open it up to free questions at the end. So of course, how do you get consistent work? Like, especially, for every niche, I think fashion brands, people want to know how to get that consistent work. But always creators are like, how do I leverage this opportunity into like multi-month campaigns?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess the first part of that is just getting maybe any work or consistent work from multiple brands. Is you have to be putting your stuff out there. You have to be doing outreach. It's just like if you're waiting at home, hoping someone's going to recruit you for a job, the percentage of that is very small. But if you're doing your outreach and putting your work in, like, there's going to be a percentage of things that come your way unless you're just terrible. You're going to get something. So I think you have to put your work in of doing the outreach, and especially like we work with all types of people, but if you do really well in a specific industry, people will take notice. They're like, oh, you did this great thing with Tarte. Like, we want you to do the same thing with Elf Cosmetics or whatever. So if you have a niche, like, that's great, because I think you can get a little bit more recognized. And again, reaching out to agencies, joining those different websites. Like, I don't really like using, I'm trying to think of a good example. There's just so many websites where you can get listed, but I feel like those people usually aren't as high quality to me. And maybe that's just a mindset that I have for some reason.
No.
So I do a lot of like general research on my own, tell people we're hiring, have people come to us. But in terms of working with a brand consistently, like, again, if you are easy to work with, simple things of just having a job, like responding to emails in a timely manner, being professional. Like, when I was working with influencers, I think like 9 years ago, when it was all still very new, I can't tell you how many people we paid, I felt like, a lot of money to, that were completely unprofessional. I'm like, I'm paying you money like a regular job, but this is just like a hobby for you. Like, having anything as a hobby is fine, but be professional, be timely, and follow directions, because we send pretty lengthy briefs, and if you don't adhere to all of them, like, I don't really want to work with you again, because I felt like I've babysat a lot with people in the past, and I don't want to. Why would I want to work with you again to babysit? Like, that's not what I'm here to do. So being professional and timely is my top two. And then honestly, working with brands consistently, the content has to perform, because if my paid ads person says, he literally told me this the other day, like, oh, Vanessa's content performs really well. I'm like, great, we already have a contract with her for 6 months. Like, I will give you more. So if it performs well, I'm automatically going to want to do that. But I also have to have a budget from the brand. And if your content works well and I don't have a budget, I'll go talk to the brand like, hey, this is doing really well, we should consider getting budget. And then, they don't usually make the decision. They have to trust me. They have to then go tell their boss, tell finance to get that. So it's usually not that easy unless the budget's already there. But be professional and have good content, and you should be fine, just like any job you've had,
I think we do regular feedback with brands and everything. And like, the number one thing is like, we just want influencers to follow directions. We want people to
exactly.
They're working on a very scrappy timeline. Like, they want people to send them stats in like an easy to read format. They want, like, making their job easier helps them be like, oh my God, she followed the bare minimum directions, which like 10% of influencers do. And like, I know I've been guilty of it, where I'm like, oh my God, it's a week late, I haven't sent my insights. Like, I don't like being that. So it's always really important to like set a reminder on your calendar, this is over, it's time to send stats. Trying to be a good brand partner if you want to work with them again. And just like, your whatever job you've had in the past, you got to follow up with those emails from your boss. You got to follow up with the emails from your part-time boss as you're working with a brand partner.
To add to that, like, I don't want to tell everyone to go above and beyond, but those people stand out. So there was a therapist influencer we worked with. I always tell people, hey, this is what we're looking for, but put your own creative twist on it. She was like, I love this. Here's how I want to twist it a bit. Here's my full script. Before she shot it, she told us how she was going to shoot it. And that saves her from edits, like, we do usually ask for 1 or 2 edit rounds. And the brand was obsessed with her. Her video was by far their favorite. And I'm like, it may not be my favorite video, but I know the brand loved her because she was so thorough and communicative with every single step of the process. And I won't forget her,
Yeah. I will say, like, now if I have a voiceover that is anywhere for a video review, I'll also send them the transcript, because chances are, like, I wrote it down in a Google Doc anyways, and I was like, here, you guys can see exactly what I was gonna say anyway. So then they can at least like edit, be like, oh, we didn't like where she said that, and like I could then go to the video and edit much quicker and send them the review. So it like reduces everyone's timeline for getting stuff done.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many great questions. Let's see. Let me go back a little bit in the chat and see. Everyone wants to join your platform, so I will send out a link to the Typeform.
Okay.
Which is very exciting. I think this is, if a brand contacts you for a free post, what should you say?
I think that's 100% for you. Like, if you love the brand and just want to be a part of their world. I don't like when brands use people, and that does happen probably more often than not, but you don't know what the next step could be, because again, they could have the popcorn brand like me that's, knows they want to spend, but they want to get a taste of it first. But that's the same thing with any job. There could have been jobs that you applied for that asked for a project beforehand. And if you want that job, you're doing that project, so that's where it also comes down to you of, do you feel comfortable doing this for free? Do you value yourself more than that and don't love the brand? But like, I don't do any of this content anymore, but if I didn't get paid, but I'm getting a free hotel stay, I'm going to say yes to that. If I'm not getting paid and asked to post about the cheese brand, and I don't post about food right now, that doesn't make sense for me, and I don't need cheese that bad. So I think it does somewhat go into the value of the product you're getting as well, but you don't know what could happen after it, but you also don't want to waste your time and feel like you got played. And unfortunately, we're all somewhat playing a game, so you have to just kind of fill that out with your gut, I think.
Yeah, that's absolutely excellent advice. Definitely, like, if it feels good for you, take it on. If it makes sense for your content that you're producing, if it makes sense for your audience, if it feels like a stretch and you just get that little feeling of ick, I'm always like, it's not for me. Like, if I want it that bad, I'll go buy it.
Exactly.
It's like having that trust standpoint with your audience is way more important than just like the one-off with a brand that could potentially turn into a deal.
And one other thing to quickly add to that is, so we have RFPs in the marketing space, which is request for proposal. There'll be ones where they're really difficult, and I didn't go to school for marketing or business. Like, no one trained me on how to answer these. I've been doing them for 8 years now, but there's some that I'm like, if this doesn't work out, I know that this was a good practice for me, even though it took a lot of time. I've never done this before, so this is a good test that could turn into something. So if you feel like the request is interesting and it could be great for your portfolio, take it.
Yeah.
Because you can use that in other ways.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I use gifted partnerships now as like a test for like expanding a niche, or
exactly. Yeah.
Is this new price point going to work for my audience? Like, how do they respond? I think as an early creator, you kind of take everything, and then it's like, I just did all this work for an $11 pair of shorts. Like, I'm over the phase of my life. Now I'm in like the learn from getting gifted product and how to use this for future opportunities. So I think, make sure you have that idea in mind of like how to turn this gift into an opportunity, whether it's with this brand or with another one.
Yeah.
And Asha asked a great question. Do consumer brands work differently than corporate brands? Any tip for corporate brands?
That's a great question, because I've worked with both. For the corporate brands, everything we do has to go through legal. So there'll be a little bit more scrutiny on you. But even though I was working with a smaller brand on a campaign a while back for influencers, and we had already decided we wanted to work with someone. We had a contract and everything. We hadn't sent her product yet, but then she posted something that did not align with the brand, mainly like cursing and things like that. And it was just like, oh, we literally can't work with her. So we had to pull back what we were doing. So I'd say there may be a little bit more scrutiny around that, but that's not too many people. And for corporate brands, we might have more guidelines around, can't work with competitive brands versus my other brands. Like, I don't care, as long as they create content that performs. I could care less if they work with our competitor. Like, that's just not what we're looking for. So it could be the differences of that, but it's mainly going to be these contractual details that, and read your contracts, because I just had an influencer come back to me or she was a UGC creator. I gave her, I don't tell everything in the email because I'm sending you a contract for a reason, but I'm like, hey, we're looking for this with paid usage. What's your price? I agree to it. I send her a contract. She signs it. We've gone through the whole contract, and she then emails me and she's like, hey, I just read through the contract. I don't agree with this. And I'm like, well, you've already delivered everything. You've been paid. That's on you for not, I forgot, it was a small detail that literally doesn't even matter, but she just got caught up on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we've already done this. So I had to go back to the brand. They had their legal team and they were like, she has to give us our money back. We won't use this content anymore if this is a problem. But she was like, no, I'll keep the money. You keep it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know why she went back to read the contract, but like read what's in the contracts, because people could slide things in, and I'm not listing every detail in the email about what we're looking for. Like that's the reason for a written document of that,
And just like from a personal example, like I just signed something and it was like we had renegotiated in the email. And when I read through the contract, I mistook like a 1 for a 7. And then when I went back, I was like, oh shoot, we never updated this. So we hadn't kicked off any of the content yet, but I was like, can you guys fix this real quick? And they're like, oh, absolutely. Like, sorry, I know we agreed to it. If you are on those like net 30 timelines, the marketing world turns over really fast. And like the way that things are going right now, you never know if the person that you're working with is going to be there for very long. And their email gets deleted when they leave the company. So like if you, all they'll have in their repository is that contract. So you want to make sure that everything that you talked about in an email is reflected in that. I had another brand partner that, they hadn't sent me the contract yet, but like the content was due one day. And I was like, look, guys, I totally respect everything. I need to sign that contract before I do any work, because I'm not going to send anything over before I do that. So just make sure that you do read through it, and we'll do like in the future, like a contract reading quick and dirty. It is really confusing, and there's a lot of great services out there like Caveat app that can help you like translate your contract from legal speak to regular normal people talk.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
And it's so important to make sure that you have that reflected in a contract.
Yeah. And even for me, I have done things on accident in a contract. Like I put the wrong date or something and people catch it and send it like, hey, can you fix this? And that's totally on me. So it could just be a genuine mistake. But I think that is really important because again, people change around and you can only rely on what was signed and in that contract.
Yeah. Well, we have 8 minutes left. I think Yvonne has asked, how can we find brands in our niche? It sounds like she's in sports and wellness. I think if I scroll back a little bit.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's me.
Great. Yeah. So, she wants to know how to find brands in her niche.
So my favorite website of all time that now I think everyone knows about is thingtesting.com. It's my favorite website. I've followed them. I do ads with them for the last like 4 years. Well, now everyone in the UGC community talks about that is a place to go to find brands, usually smaller brands, maybe startups, things like that. I think that's a great place to start. And to be honest, if there is other creators in your industry, see who they're working with. I like to follow just cool people in general, and I'm always finding new brands from them. So just kind of being in that know of up and coming brands, because obviously the smaller a brand is, the smaller the team usually is, and it's easier to get in contact with them versus if I email hello@target.com, that's not going anywhere,
Can you spell that for me?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
The thing testing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's one more that's very similar, CPGD, I think it's .xyz, very similar. These are definitely for people in my industry of the consumer product goods category and just industry insights, but they're great places to find brands. And even if you're looking for a cool gift for someone, that is my go-to place. Like there's always just something new and cool I've never seen before there.
Yeah, love new consumer packaged goods companies. And Sabaya had a wonderful question. I remember seeing it on the Typeform. She is a motherhood and career creator, and she lives in Canada, but she wants to work with more US brands. So how does she navigate that cross-border collaboration opportunity?
That's a great question. So if we work with people in Canada, I have to ask my brand if that's okay, because there could be people we don't ship to, or they only want US people. So I do find people in Canada or even the UK, everywhere, that I think is really cool, but I'm usually given restrictions on who I can work with. Even we've had, we couldn't send our perfume to someone in Hawaii because of the regulations with having that on an airplane. So there's always regulations that we have. And that's what's held me back from working with a lot of people in Canada. I don't know if I have a good answer for this. I would definitely say make sure those brands ship it to Canada. And again, just doing that outreach and putting yourself out there of who you want to work with. But I will say I have been stopped from working with people in other countries or even just within the continental US because of like shipping issues.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Do you know if there's any tax implications from sending like a 1099 form or anything like that at the end of the year from working international?
So yeah, it's a little bit different. We'll have to do an international contractor, and something my agency does is we handle the payments for our clients because that's just another hard thing for them to deal with. And usually they can't pay us quickly. So I've mainly just worked with some people in Canada. That's a great question, but I don't think it's any different, but I know when I put it into our system, it's more of an international contractor versus just within the US. I was going to say something else, but I think I just lost it. Maybe it'll come back.
So I know there's an international wired like thing from like our payroll system. So like if we had to pay an international contractor, we could just pay them directly. So I'm not really sure how that works, but I assume it's pretty similar. And then Stephanie has a wonderful question, which may or may not be our last question. We'll try to get as many more if they come up, but how do you find agencies like yours to get their name in their database for opportunities? What's the tactic there?
Honestly, put your time into some research, ask other creators and friends and things like that. Like I have a pretty small agency and by luck, you've come across it, like we don't run ads. We're not listed anywhere. I'll put out ads if I'm looking for people. I run a lot of ads with I Love Creatives a lot. And then I posted on our TikTok yesterday of looking for people for the skincare brand. CPGD, which is the link a few things ago in the chat I put in, actually has a agency thing listed for all the agencies that work with consumer product brands. So look there. And then there's another website, Agency Spotter, and then Clutch. And then those are the two ones. Oh, Design Rush. These are more insight things in the marketing world that no one else would really know about, but we want to get listed there as an agency, have reviews, but those are just 3 websites full of agencies. And obviously you want to make sure you're looking for PR or social media agencies or content agencies.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and even if you find an agency because sometimes like when you're looking for a brand, they'll have an agency tag and like a photo or something that's representing them. Go follow them on social media, go email them and just be like, hey, I'm a creator in XYZ space. Here's what I talk about. Anything opportunity wise that's related to X, would love to talk to you about. I think just putting that personal touch point right in someone's inbox. Again, staffing is the most time consuming part of every creator campaign, besides collecting all the insights. So, as easy as you can make it for brands to reach out to you and who you are top of mind, the best way you'll get hired for things. Yeah. Okay, great. So we have 2 minutes left. I think we're going to wrap it. If you have any other burning questions, if we didn't cover something specific that you wanted to know more about, please email us. I will Anna in the roundup email with this webinar, and this will go out in the next 2 days once I get it formatted for YouTube. I just want to thank Anna so much for all of her knowledge and being here with us today, even though she's calling in from Belgium on her super big fun European adventure. I appreciate the conversation and the insight that you provided for everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. And please reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm happy to make people's portfolio better so I can hire you, because I spend hours looking for the right people to work with. But there just might be something minor wrong with your portfolio and I pass it along. And please do apply. She'll send the link for the skincare brand because I need people now.
Yeah, perfect. And we'll definitely circulate that today so everyone can get
thanks
for you to get it staffed as soon as possible.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day and can't wait to see you on our next one.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.